My next guest I had the privilege to sit down with is a pioneer in the legal cannabis space, and they advocate for the rights of Black trans men within the cannabis industry. So, within this episode, we discuss Black men in the industry, trans men in the industry, and Black trans men in the industry, or lack thereof. But the cannabis industry is not all that we discuss. We also talked about a lot about Black culture, and we discussed the lack of education within the community. We discussed the topics of cis versus trans, and we also discuss some experiences, both good and bad, that we've had with cis heteronormative characteristics and behaviors. And so this is a really great episode. I hope that you enjoy. Hello and welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Aaron, he, him, his, and I will be your guide throughout this journey on the show. This show is a platform where trans men of color voices will be amplified as we share our stories. Trans men of color are not monolithic. What that means is our journeys are not the same. We come from different backgrounds. We have different stories, family relations, chosen family, and most of all, we have different transition journeys. Visibility equals possibility. I like to say that all the time. We like to highlight on this show trans men of color businesses and entrepreneurs, parents, athletes, survivors, and many other issues and topics that are relatable to trans men of color in our existence. Dem Bois Podcast is not only a platform to amplify our voices, but to raise awareness and conversation around our lived experiences. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting, listening, and sharing the show. Welcome to Dem Bois Podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Aaron, he, him, his. My next guest is a pioneer in the legal cannabis space, and he advocates for the rights of Black trans men in cannabis. So this is the second guest on the show who pronounced their name the same way as mine, but this is actually the first guest who spells their name the same way as I do. So welcome to the show.
How you doing? What's going on, everybody? My name's Shawn. He, him, his. Happy to be here.
Yes, Shawn, I'm happy to have you here. So where are you located?
So currently, right now, I'm in the DMV metropolitan area. So I stay in Maryland, so Silver Spring, Maryland.
Silver Spring, Maryland. So how's the weather out there right now?
It's about in the 40s today. About in the 40s. I'm still trying to get used to this weather, man. I'm from the South, so like I had to get used to like the cold weather, but it's dope.
Okay, you just like it's around the 40s, like that's just casually, like that's normal. I can't do that. I cannot do it. So I'm living in the Bay Area, and 40s to us is freezing.
Yeah, I actually went to the Bay for the first time last May, packed all shorts. I was so surprised, man. I got out the plane. I'm like, it's cold as a mug out here, man.
It was cold. Oh,
I'm like, yo. Everyone's like, yeah, it's because we're a peninsula and blah,
yeah.
blah. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes you could. I mean, I don't even own a jacket to be honest with you, because I don't need one. Hoodies is all I have. It don't get cold enough for that. So it's like it'll be maybe warmer in the daytime, but towards the night it'll be kind of breezy and cold. But I can't do 40s. That's not me. I can't do it.
Yeah, I wish I could, live somewhere where it's warmer, but you know how that is, man.
Yeah. So I like to ask you, how did the name Shawn choose you?
I've always been named Shawn. So my birth name, which for me personally, I don't like to call it a dead name. Because to me, I mean, that's still an aspect of who I was, and that's always going to be, a part of me. So I always just say my birth name. Had this word Shawn, had the name Shawn in it. So my family always called me Shawn, and at first, I was going by the name. And I don't, I'm an open book on my sharing. I was going by the name Tish, which is also a part of my birth name. My birth name was Tashana. I was going by the name Tish. And I feel like everybody, when you I feel like everybody got a stud name in that past life. You know what I mean? So like Tish was my stud name, you know what I'm saying? So when I transitioned, I'm like, I'll just keep the name Tish, I'm whatever. But then it didn't fit me. I couldn't get with it. And my whole life, I always felt like that aspect of Shawn was who I truly was with all mask off. You know what I'm saying? I don't got to pretend to be hyper masculine. I don't got to pretend to be into certain things. Like Shawn was nostalgic because it was my childhood nickname in my family. So it just felt right. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with Shawn. And then as far as my middle name, I'm not a huge religious person, but I'm on a tip with everybody. You know, I follow, Islam. I read the Bible as well. I read a little bit of Buddhism. The angel Gabriel has always stuck out to me in the Bible. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just be Shawn Gabriel. So that's why I got my name.
Oh, I love that. Sean Gabriel. That's really nice, actually. That it kind of go together. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my name Sean was kind of like a derivative from my birth name too, and I like how you say that you don't like to say dead name. I've never heard anybody explain it like that because that's true. It's an aspect of who you are as a person, right? With the sum of all of our parts. So
Right.
it's not dead. The only time I say it's dead is when somebody looking for me. I'm like, oh, that's a dead name. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I like how you explain that. So what if somebody listening does say dead name about their birth name? What advice would you give them to kind of like change his perspective on saying it in that way?
I feel like it's hard to give advice to change someone's perspective because everybody's transition is different. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? To me, it'll always be a part of who I am, but to other trans men, that name or that aspect of who they were might have been more traumatic than my own experience. You get what I'm saying? So I try to understand where people come from. So I can't really, say an advice. I could just say, your scars, we have scars because the past is real. And all of our scars show us that the past is real, whether that's physical scars, emotional scars. You get what I'm saying? And I feel like for me personally, I feel like until you embrace that past self of yourself and learn how to still love that person, you'll always look at it as a dead name, or you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying, or something you gotta kill off, when it's still an aspect of you. You know what I'm saying? How we view ourselves is not how the world viewed ourselves when we were pre-T.
Mm.
That's where I feel like a lot of this dead name stuff comes from because it's a response to, the trauma and hurt that other outside individuals, gave us as far as who we were or treating us when we did identify as female, treating us less than when we were masculine females and stuff like that. So we just want to write that person off when you were who you were before that. You just didn't, acknowledge who you were, didn't know you were a trans man. But your response to that person is just purely response off of how the world treated you, not how you treated yourself.
If I
How
could give you a round of applause, I wish I had a button I could push and give you a round of applause because that was well said and well
I,
articulated. And I appreciate you for that input. And
thank
I
you.
hope that, and it's not to change folks' minds per se, but to give people a different way of looking at it, a different type of way of expressing it. And that was that was well said. That's all I could say. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
that.
For
Yeah.
sure. Sure.
Yeah. So Sean, let us know your transition journey, like from beginning into where you are now.
So I remember the first time I've ever saw a transgender man on the internet. I was on Instagram. This was like 2017. I was fresh out of college or just about to graduate college, undergrad. And I came across this page called Melanated Trans Men. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just scrolling through the page. You get what I'm saying? I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, no, I can never do that. My mama would kill me. You know what I'm saying? That's the first thing I'm thinking, like, couldn't be me, but I feel like that was just, me subconsciously suppressing how I always felt. Um, Even I guess I can go further back as a child. I I never felt like my birth gender. I used to go to the Boys and Girls Club. My mom used to put my hair in like cornrows. And I remember one summer I pretended to be a boy that whole summer. I got caught because I had to go to the bathroom one day and they called me going to the girls' bathroom. But uh fast forward to back when I found that page, the lady I was dating at the time was like, yo, this is wild. These people are really, changing their appearance. This is crazy, but not in no negative way. She was like, yeah, that's interesting, lesbian woman. She don't. So as years went on, I started to like, I always had an issue with my top. And I was like, I started saying things like, man, if I had $10,000, I'd get top surgery, but I'm not trans though. Like stuff like that, just trying to like, you know, suppress it pretty much. And it was May 2021. I was still living in North Carolina. That's where I'm from. I went to a club with a friend, one of my homeboys. Now, this is the South. I don't know if you know much about the South. The South is still segregated in a lot of ways, and I'm not just talking about race. The club line get long immediately. The bouncers always say, all right, we making two lines, females to the left, males to the right. Now, mind you, all my friends are cisgender men. My friends, get to the right. I got to stay to the left. It was in that moment, it hit me. I'm like, I don't belong over here. I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like I was violating myself by standing in that line. Because here I am, a line full of women, beautiful women. And I didn't feel like myself. I just turned to my boy and I was just like, you know what, man, I'm going home. I sat with those feelings. I went home. I sat with those feelings for 3 days. I didn't talk to nobody, just trying to figure it out. And like I said, I'm an open book, Shawn. I tell you, I talk to everybody like I've known them for 5 years. Sometimes it's a gift and a curse. I went home and I popped a Molly. And this was when I was 26. I went home and I popped a Molly. And it was like that thing gave me courage. I instantly hopped on Instagram and was like, look, I'm a man. I've been a man. I always felt out of place. I was like, and to be honest, I've been a realer nigga than most of you niggas in the city anyway. And this is just me coming out. And once I did that, I got a lot of love, which I was surprised. I got a lot of support and love. But with that support and love, it was a lack of education. And that's where I struggled with my first part of my transition.
So when you was in that line here in the Bay Area, I'm not quite sure of the South because I've never actually been to the South. I only know about the South what I see on TV or what people actually tell me. But I know here when you go to clubs, they tend to bouncers or security at the door, they tend to treat who they appear to be cisgender women and cisgender men differently. So they'll let women go in the club and they don't search them and all that, right? You might just have to open up the bag. But the man, you're gonna get a pat down, you're probably gonna get wanded and all that stuff. So my question to you is when you were in this line, did they treat women and men differently going into the club? That was my first question.
Absolutely. The men got the whole pat down and all of that. Even prior to that line, when I used to go to the club or the bars, I would get a pat down, but they made sure a woman would pat you down, but it was a little more excessive than, the regular feminine presenting women. You get what I'm saying? The woman's filling up under your chest and she's still going in your pockets. I don't got no purse or anything. The women, like feminine women, they just, pat you down. It was a little more intrusive, but they did make sure it was a woman who patted me down. Now I will give them that.
So when you were standing in that line in that moment, did you get some type of reaction from your friends who you was with or the other people standing in line? Is that why you felt some type of way, or was just the actual separation of going into one line or the other?
It was the separation of going into one line and the other, and it was internal feelings. Because to my friends, this is normal. You know what I'm saying? To a cisgender man, and I'm gonna get into that a little later in the podcast of why I don't like to group myself in as I'm a man, you get what I'm saying? But I like to distinguish myself between me being a man and cisgender men. Because to them, it's normal. You get what I'm saying? As your everyday life as a man, and I'm sure you can vouch if you pass, I'm sure you pass in public when nobody don't know. The way you get treated versus the way a woman gets treated anyway, it's a mind fuck. It's a paradox every day as I walk outside now that I'm seeing it. So to them, it's like, okay, well, we in two different lines. That ain't nothing. That's no big deal. You know what I'm saying? They don't look at me as homegirl anyway. They always looked at me as homeboy, even though they respected me as a female. You know what I'm saying? But to them, they didn't look at me any type of way. The women in the line, of course, they'll look like, oh, that's a stud or whatever. Keep on pushing it. But it's all about the mental and internal feelings. Like, why the fuck am I over here? That's what I was thinking. I felt so uncomfortable. These muds got skirts and heels, and I'm here with a fitted, my pants sagging. At the time, I wasn't wearing no bra because I was, you know what I'm saying? I got tired of it, was making me look more busty. So I stopped wearing bras at one point. And I'm just like, bro, I feel weird. I do not like being over here. And at that point, I was just like, I can't deal. It was the overwhelming feeling of uncomfortability that I just couldn't handle in that moment. And I don't know if it was, the higher power. I don't know if it was like somebody from my, past or something, a spirit or something tapped me on my shoulder like, hey, nigga, it's time. Like, you dragging it. You know what I'm saying? But at that moment, I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't. I'm going home. And I mean, they respected it. They went home with me. You know what I'm saying? We went home, we smoked. It was like, to them, they were just like, yeah, man, it was too packed in there tonight. We couldn't get in there. I never really disclosed at that moment how I was feeling to them.
So let's talk about this a little bit, about cis versus trans. You saying you just a man. Do you identify as a trans man, or you just say, I'm just a man, it don't even matter? I want to talk about that a little bit more.
I feel like I identify as both. I identify as a trans man when I'm in a room full of cisgendered men. And I don't have no problem. I have no fear. Niggas ain't gonna touch me. But to the world, I identify as a man because that's how the world treats me when I go out in the world if you don't know no better. The reason why I don't like, because I prefer cisgender women, so I consider myself heterosexual up until recently. And I'm still straight. I still prefer only cisgender women, but I don't like calling myself heterosexual. When people look at me and think I'm cis hetero, that's a problem for me because my experience wasn't that of a cis hetero man my whole life. I was a lesbian. You get what I'm saying? Like, so to me, I've started adapting as I'm a straight queer or I'm a queer straight man. As just being a part of that community because my experience still isn't your experience. You get what I'm saying? Even when I get and when I do plan on having, my second surgery, it still wouldn't be your experience as a cisgender man. You get what I'm saying? Or cis hetero man. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I like to differentiate myself between the two. And no shade, I have a lot of great, wonderful cisgender men, in my life as friends. But, I hate to say it, one spoiled apple sometimes rots the whole pot. A lot of cisgender men are the scum of the earth. Like, they're the scum of the earth. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just the way the mindsets and how they treat women. I can't get behind that, especially as someone who once identified as a woman. You know what I'm saying? Or how they treat other people in our community, or how they're blocked off with their feelings. Like with my father, he's the type, I don't really have that good relationship with him, but he's the type who, you're don't be too soft. When I was identifying as a lesbian, he was like, if you're gonna be dressing like a nigga, you can't be too soft crying over little girls and da 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 da. But to me, nigga, at the time, I was still your daughter. You still gotta have some type of softness with me. You get what I'm saying? And that's what I learned as an adult. Even as a trans man, I still have a soft aspect to me. I ain't no punk. You get what I'm saying? But I still acknowledge my feminine side. You get what I'm saying? Because that's my experience. So yeah, I can go down a rabbit hole, man.
No, and that's all good. I'm here for it, and I agree with what you're saying. And it's the way that we're socialized versus the way the sisters of men are socialized that makes it different, right? And I was in the store the other day. I was in Target. I don't even know why I was up there. I was browsing in the section. I was looking for a tank top, really. But I still was just looking around for the stuff. And there was this older black man on the phone. I'm assuming that he was a cisgender man on the phone having a conversation. He had the phone on speaker, so he was talking to a feminine sounding person. And he was like, she was like, you need to go look at the jeans. And he was like, nah, they only got them skinny jeans, and I don't want to look like no sissy. And I was thinking in my head, what? It was like a toxic masculinity, because it's like, first of all, you're talking to a feminine sounding person. So it's like, what does wearing skinny jeans got to do with being a sit? It was mind boggling to me. It's like, if you put the pants on, you're gonna be the man who you are in those pants. And how do you know they may look good on you? I was thinking all this in my head. Then I was like, you know what? I don't even want a shirt no more, because I'm tired of hearing his conversation, because it just sounded weird. And you don't know who's around you and who's listening and who's taking that in, right? And so it could have been a child in the aisle that's taking that in, and maybe they identify some type of way. And so they hear this man saying that on the phone, and then they're like, well, damn, I can't wear the jeans that I may like because I don't want to look like a quote unquote sissy, right? So it's all this like toxic conversations and behaviors, and that we have to unlearn, but you have to be responsible for unlearning it individually, right? So
And what,
yeah.
man, as when I came out, up until recently, like I fought to keep certain friendships that I had. And it's no, bad blood with certain people or individuals, but you can't say you respect me or you love me as your friend or as your family member as a trans man, and you support me. And I get on Facebook and you sharing stuff like, well, I don't understand why studs be trying to be women's baby daddies and blah, 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 or this, that is gay and da, 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 da. You know what I'm saying? To me, I don't get that. You know what I'm saying? And the past 2024 specifically, I've taken a step back from a lot of people and isolated myself, and not in a depressed way. It's just, I want to be in spaces where, where you automatically understand, you know, you automatically understand. I've done the teaching that I can do. Google is right there. You know what I'm saying? I'm a platform myself by just walking outside every day and living my life, and you knowing me from my pre-T life to now. Why would you even crack jokes, or why would you even say the word sissy, or you know what I'm saying, or stuff like that? Like, I can't, and I can't deal with it. So I'm in a stage of my life now where I've pulled myself back from everybody and just only want to be around people who, you get what I'm saying, I feel there's a safe space there. You know what I mean? And the safest space I feel is my house and here with my woman and my cat. And that's real. Because, I mean, everybody, my mom, she tries to make me as comfortable, and as understanding. And in the beginning of my transition, we had a rocky start. Like, I had to stop talking to her for 2 months for her to understand, like, this is who I am. She felt at that time, our parents, especially Black parents, they feel like you're obligated to them because they gave you life and because they gave you, necessity and stuff like that. They get a pass with everything. And that's what she thought with the pronouns. I get a pass. I get a pass for learning. You got to give me some grace. But if I'm not giving this stranger some grace, and as soon as I correct them, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, why would I give you some grace? And I've known you my whole life. You know what I'm saying? And I don't, you know what I'm saying? If I'm not giving, why would I give you grace? If I called you dad instead of mom, would you give me grace?
Ooh.
Like, man, like,
I've never heard anybody say it like that. That's yeah. You right though. People do say that. Oh, I'm gonna give. And I even say it. I'm guilty of saying that. I'll give you a certain amount of grace. I'm gonna give you enough grace that my mental health can tolerate. After that, I'm done. I'm done. I'm run out of grace. You know what I mean? It's like you get it together. You right.
And I think when we do that, people abuse it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, you got to think. I mean, for me personally, a lot of people, for what we know, probably didn't take the transition as serious as we did. They just love us as a person. Oh, this is their life. They transition and they changing their gender. They coming into who they are, who they think they are. I'm just speaking what people are saying. You know what I'm saying? I love them. That's my homie. That's my, I'm just saying what they saying. My sister, my cousin, my blah, blah, blah. I love them. You know what I'm saying? You give that person some grace, they just gonna keep abusing it. Oh, I love them. They understand what I mean.
Hey, this is Shawn Aaron, the host of Dem Bois Podcast. Are you enjoying the podcast so far? Great. I'm glad that you are. Would you consider donating today to help support the continuation of this podcast? As you know, this podcast aims to serve as a platform to highlight and amplify the voices of trans men of color and share our transition stories. The podcast not only aims to amplify trans men of color voices, but it also raises awareness around our lived experiences. You would like to donate? Where can you donate? Great. I'm glad that you asked. Link in our description will take you directly to Network for Good, whom we've partnered with in order to collect donations for the podcast. Or you can visit our website. On the website, click the donate button, and from there, you are able to donate directly to the podcast. All donations are tax deductible. What does the donations go to? Oh, I'm glad that you asked. Your donation will help to support our production costs. We are working with Jasmine from Pink Lady Productions that brings you this awesome content. And also, we pay our guests an honorarium. Pay our guests an honorarium. Yes, we do. Why? Because as trans men of color, we would like to support and uplift each other and honor the time that's given out to come here and share their stories. So if you love this podcast, share and donate. See you on the next episode. Take care. Respect is more than what you say to me in my face. Respect is what you say about me when I'm not around. Right. Exactly. So it goes back to what people posting and what they saying on social media. But then you saying something different when you're in my face. No, you should do it all around in your life, not just when I'm in your face. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah. So let's go back to that. You made a comment earlier about lack of education. What did you mean by that? Let's get into that.
Now I'm out to sound like the devil's advocate on something I just said about grace. So I already acknowledge that I'm about to sound, I'm about to sound conflicted. Up until recently with the TikTok and recently with us as trans men finding a community with each other, a lot of Black people don't know trans men specifically, Black trans men specifically. When we think of transgender people, we think automatically male to female. You get what I'm saying? They was never educated on somebody like us. You get what I'm saying? So it's mind-boggling because I tried to join an organization. I'm not going to say what organization, but I tried to join an organization. When I tried to join this organization, one of the first things one of the members asked me, and they said, this has nothing to do with the organization, and I'm not trying to be, disrespectful, but do you have male parts? Older man, you know what I'm saying? I had to check myself at first because I kind of looked at him like he was crazy. And then I was just like, I understand. I was like, am I the first transgender person you ever met? He's like, yeah, I come from a different generation. I was like, okay. You get what I'm saying? First of all, thank you for first telling me that ain't got nothing to do with the organization, because you would have made this joint look bad, for one. Second of all, thank you for coming to me directly instead of whispering like I've seen everybody else in the room do. I appreciate it. And I shook his hand. I was like, let me tell you, I'm not going to answer that because that's none of your business. And you shouldn't ask anybody else that, but any other questions you like to ask me, in the general sense, I'll be happy to answer. We start talking about, the bathroom, and, he was like, well, how would somebody know the difference, if you went into a bathroom that you're trans, how would they know the difference? I was like, well, some people don't have that and they'll go into a stall versus a urinal. You get what I'm saying? I'm just explaining him, the different laws, what's going on in Florida. And it was a real good conversation. He appreciated it. And I don't know what he did with that knowledge afterwards. That's his business. But I did my due diligence in that moment. He could have went out there and said, hey, this mug is crazy. They delusional like everybody else. Or he could have went out there and educated, the rest of the group and say, hey, man, we can't say this. We can't say that for the betterment of our organization. You get what I'm saying? To protect ourselves, or if we want to change and be more inclusive and bring people like that in. He could have did either one of those. It was just my job to get them right there in the moment. But a problem comes for me with education where it's like, now you're just asking me ignorant stuff. You get what I'm saying? Where it's like, when it comes to the pronouns, I can only explain to you so much where I'm going to lose my patience and be like, go Google it. Because we got TikTok, we got Google, we got Instagram. You get what I'm saying? At some point, it's a thin line between I'm ignorant and I don't know anything about this to I just don't feel like looking it up. So I'm just gonna tell you a bull-faced lie, like, oh, I'm not educated. Da, 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 da. You educated enough to go watch that podcast was just hilarious and laugh about it.
Mm.
You're not educated enough to go look up what this word means or what the bathroom means. Like, get out of my face with that, man. Come on.
Yeah,
Like,
that was straight up rude and disrespectful. And I want to
yeah.
know, like, what was your point of asking me that? Are you this is my thing. You don't need to know what parts I have unless we about to be having sex with each other. I'm just saying straight up. If you saying you interested in me sexually and then that becomes a part of the conversation, then we could discuss parts and what you got and what I don't have and vice versa, what you like and what I don't like. Other than that, you don't just randomly walk up to somebody and say, "What you got?" Yo, that's okay. Let me tell you something though. What we think here, I mean, I think in general, worldwide, that's inappropriate to ask somebody what they have. But we had a guest previously from Uganda. And in Uganda, they can legally say, are you a man or a woman? And in the middle of the street and check your parts in the middle of the street. And that's happened to my guest. Ruther Lubega was the guest. I can't remember the exact episode, but for folks listening, I'll make sure to include that episode in the description of this episode. But yeah, so we think of that as being something that's out of line and out of rude, but in some places that's okay. And that's just normal behavior, right? And to me, I don't give a fuck where I am. That's just a violation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not going would you go walk down the street and ask anybody that? Like that's just rude, right? That's just disrespectful. It's like it disrespecting not only the person you asking, but yourself, right? And and yes, I like to say go Google it, but I don't want us to tell people to Google because you can't trust Google on everything because we're not all the same, right? That's just like asking somebody to go look up if they're a non-person of color, going to look up people of color and Googling it. Our
Let me
experience.
ask you something.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
need to cut you off.
No, it's all
Do
good.
you think it got something to do with us being assigned female at birth and the black woman already being looked at sexualized in our community and outside of the communities? No matter if she's feminine, no matter if she's masculine, no matter what. Do you believe that has something to do with it as far as lack of education from all parts, from black women to black men? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And being overly sexualized. Absolutely. And I think that's also a problem. And this just is my own opinion. And I think that that's also a problem with what people have with trans women as well.
yep.
So it's like this over sexualization. And I just was talking about this recently with somebody about this issue with the restroom and gyms and all of that and why it's such a problem for trans women to be in a restroom. And it's because, oh, our safety. Well, why is everything sexualized, right? It's like people fail to realize that cisgender women can harass somebody in the restroom too. And that's sexually too, right? So it's like, so I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I feel like it's just a disrespect, yes, of women in general that you think that as a cisgender man, you could just ask a woman anything about their body. My body is not here for you to police. Anybody's body is not here for you to police.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just wanted to pluck your brain about that.
Yeah, and I would have did the same thing that you did. I don't know. I would have been like first. I would have just said like I said in the beginning. Hey, you want to have sex with me? No. Okay, then we don't. Then we don't have to. I'm not gonna answer that question, right? Like that's rude. And so with this organization? Did you join this organization?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right.
No,
So did you walk out like you did when you was in the line, or did you
no.
stay for a little bit?
I stayed for a little bit.
Okay.
I stayed for a little bit. I
Okay.
was in an organization pre-T. So I kinda, you know what I'm saying, knew what to expect. I was a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated pre-T. Um, so I kind of knew what to expect. Um, as far as the organization goes, and laws and well, not laws, traditions and stuff like that. But I ended up staying around, because it's also that I'm a Scorpio, so I got a lot of pride in me anyway. But I get tired of hearing the alphabet community so sensitive. You can't ask them shit because they da 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 da. You get what I'm saying? Like, so it's just like
Nah, you can ask a shit. You just gotta ask the right shit.
you gotta ask the right shit. You get what I'm saying? So like, I didn't let it, taint my experience or whatever. I personally just decided. I don't need any type of organization. It's nothing against those organizations. They're phenomenal. They're a staple in our community, and I stand by all of them. But I don't need any type of organization that isn't willing to look at tradition. You know what I mean? Like look at tradition and look at the times that we're in now, and not just talk about those organizations. We have other organizations and other things as well. Even with the military finally coming around, you get what I'm saying? That's all tradition that's finally starting to be cracked. So, it ain't nothing against them. It's just a personal thing.
Yeah. I feel like everything is a tradition, even religion.
Yeah.
Is I won't get into that. That's a whole nother topic, a whole nother
Yeah.
episode. But everything is so rigid. And it's like us as human beings, we're not rigid. We all change, we shift, we move. People are so quick to adapt the new iPhone. Oh, the new 15 is coming out. I'm about to dump my 14 and go get the 15. But we're not so willing to change when it comes to people and culture and lives and the way we live our lives.
I
It,
just
it
told
baffles me.
I just told my woman the other day, because it's Ramadan or whatever. And I was like, wow, I've been reading in Islam, the past few years. And recently I was like, I grew up in the church, Christian, Southern Baptist, Free Will Baptist, all that. Um, and I just told her the other day, and it stuck with me when I said it. I was like, honestly, I live life based off of my morals and values these days, not off of religion. Like I appreciate these books and I can get a life lesson out of them. You know what I'm saying? And I'll read them and I acknowledge that there's a higher power. I was like, but I can't continue to live my life in fear of going to hell. I could just, enjoy my life and live my life off of my morals and values and try to be the best person that I can. You know what I'm saying? Because as far as I know right now, I believe there's another, realm or we go somewhere else. But as far as I know, I'm just here right now. You get what I'm saying? And that's no disrespect to God, Allah. That's no disrespect. But I live my life based on my morals and values and how I treat, fellow people in the world. And that's just how I live my life, man. Ain't even no religion or spirituality about it. I feel like it goes back to tradition, like you said, even in the terms of, spirituality. It's beautiful. And I'm glad people are expressing themselves, but it's starting to become as big as like religious things now. I feel like everybody feel like we got to be in a box and feel like we're standard or something. As long as you got a relationship with whatever you believe in, your creator, yourself, whatever you believe in, and you treat thy neighbor good, hey man, like
I feel like I'm looking in the mirror. Because everything you just said is everything that I always say. That's how I
yeah,
live my life too, right? On my morals and my values. I can't talk about what's going to happen to me when I'm not physically here anymore because I ain't never been there before,
yeah,
and I hope I'm on the right side of whatever it is that is on that other side. But I know that I did the best that I could and I treated people well, and I live by my values and my morals, and that's all I could do, right? And so I'm not trying to live to other people's expectations but my own. And so, yeah, that's real. Thank you for all of that. Like that's
for sure, for sure.
man, people, man, I won't bash religion. I won't even go there because I'm not gonna. I feel like if something is going to make you a better person and a better individual and something that you need to guide you through life, then by all means cling to that. But don't think that just because it works for you is going to work for me and everybody else, right?
Right. I feel like that's all we be looking for is something to have faith in.
Mm.
Life hard, man. You gotta believe in something. And then that's just not necessarily, to say go join any religion, or you gotta believe in something to keep you sane out here. I get it. You know what I'm saying? I understand. Like we both said, we just personally believe in how we treat people who are here. You know what I'm saying? And some of them people who follow those religions don't treat people well.
Right,
Even the same people who share their religion. Like,
right.
so, I could just speak growing up in church. Man, everybody knows. I'm pretty sure my experience like everybody else. Your parents are in church, and I love my parents, praising God, all that. As soon as we get in the car, you see so and so did this. Da, 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 da,
Yeah,
da, da. Like,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I won't say I turned my back on religion, but I felt a little jaded by religion. I was raised in church. I was in church since I was 2 years old. And it's all about treat your neighbor well, do all this, do all that. But then when it came time when I was older and I was homeless, and I was like, wait a minute. All these things that I was taught, my mother followed none of those things. And it's like, and so I had this thing like, all of it is fake. And I also watched this movie when I was about 19 years old called The Village. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But it was like this group of folks moved their families into the middle of nowhere. And they had this perimeter around the village. You got to watch it. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it shifted my mind. So for anybody listening, watch The Village. And that shifted my mind of how people can manipulate you to believe one way to prevent you from going outside of the perimeter of your life. And so, yeah. So I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to spoil it for folks who ain't watched it. But I was like, it was mind opening to me of like, wait a minute, people could tell you whatever they want to tell you. And if you never go outside of the perimeter of what you've been told, you're gonna believe it. But on the other side, because like all the people when I was growing up, all the people and all the things that my mom told me was wrong or not to hang around with when I was homeless, those same people was the people that saved my life. Hey, this is Shawn Aaron. I'm the founder and executive director of Dem Bois Inc. I am also the host of Dem Bois Podcast. As you may know, Dem Bois provides financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender-affirming surgery. We have great news. We're currently looking for volunteers to help support our programs. Our programs include our gender-affirming surgery grant program and also our personal care package program. We personally curate packages filled with personal hygiene items. Just to name a few, things like tissue, soap, towels, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. We mail them out to trans men of color across the country who may be in need of help caring for their personal hygiene needs. We are looking for volunteers to help raise funds to support our programs. Also, we're looking for someone locally to the Bay Area to help us put all of the care packages together. If our mission is something that resonates with you and you would like to help support our work, just let us know. You can send an email to hello@dembois.org. That is HELLO@DEMBOIS.org. And we will get back to you with further details. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the next episode.
My pastor growing up, this about to blow your mind. I was like 16, dog, like 17. I had to be 16. I had to be 16 because this was before my brother passed away. I'm sure I had to be 16. Called me in the office one day after church. I was an usher. My mom's on the usher board, whatever. Go in the office. Hey, how you doing? This is about to blow you. My first thing she says to me, now I'm 16. This is how you know.
I had to sit back in my seat because I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Go ahead.
What do you get out of wearing a fake penis? Don't you know that the vagina was made for a man's penis? Hold on. Her daughter's gay and married to a woman. She said, I'll be one to ask my daughter the same stuff. You asking me? I'm 16. She like 40, 50. Grown-ass lady, door closed in the back of the church.
Nah, I wasn't ready for that.
Mind you, I've never wore a strap at this point. I'm 16. You know what I'm saying? But I've always had the type of mindset. I was just like, I assume penetration is a feeling. It has nothing to do with body. That's exactly what I said. Like, she started going on and talking about the Bible and the Lord, and she did a prayer. Now, mind you, she has said nothing to my mother. We on the way to the chicken spot. Just me and my mom in the car. I look at my mom, and I was like, Pastor said this, that, and the third. I've never seen my mother so upset, like so angry. And I don't even know if it was the fact that it was 16. I don't even know if it was the fact that she thought it was out of pocket because we were talking about that, or it was the fact that, because the first thing she said was, why didn't she ask me that? Why didn't she come talk to me that? Why wasn't I in the office? And looking back at it now, it's kind of just like, she did acknowledge like she shouldn't have asked me that in general. But it was kind of just like, why would you want to be in the office with that conversation anyway?
Yeah.
That should have been your first offense. We should have turned around and went to that church and had me stand there and you confront her then. As far as I know, but my mom was going off, and I think she sent her like a long message. So my mom's a writer. She's the type to write you a letter or a text message to tell you how she feels.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I love her to death, but she sent her a long text message, and I don't know whatever happened with that, but that turned me off from church. That, and when I was an adult, I remember going to a church in Greensboro. I went to go shake the pastor's hand because I'm from a small city in North Carolina. You just walk up to the pastor. It was like the nigga had bodyguards. It was like, hold on, you can't just walk up. You gotta. I'm like, this nigga ain't Diddy, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, you know what? I'm not even people looking at me crazy already because I'm wearing slacks and shit. At this time, I wasn't, transitioned. I was like, after then, I ain't been to church since, man.
How many years ago was that?
5 years, 6 years. Been in church for 5, 6 years.
That's you just I don't know what to tell you. I can't tell you to find a church that's affirming. I can't tell you any of that because right, that's your own experience and it's sad that a lot of people walking around with church hurt and the people that you trust to guide you and lead you into this, into the world, it's supposed to be leading it by an example. It's not always the folks that's doing what they're supposed to do. And at the end of the day, that's the problem too. We put too much power. We give them too much power when the power is actually ours.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, also everybody's human and nobody's perfect. And so you have to have a relationship with God and spirituality on your own outside of what maybe that preacher's saying so that you know what to do for yourself and not have to rely on somebody else to tell you what it is to do when they may not be doing what they're supposed to be doing either. So I'm sorry you had to experience that. That's a lot. That's a lot. That was all kind of inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a conversation she needed to have with her daughter. And that was what that problem was. Lady,
Yeah.
you
She
need to go
probably didn't
mend
know
your
how to do it.
relationship. Yeah. That
She
now that's something you Google. That's a now that was a question for Google for sure.
Oh,
Yeah. So you a pioneer in the legal cannabis space. You want to talk about that a little bit more?
yeah. So I always been in the weed, man. Like, always been in the weed. In undergrad, I went to North Carolina A&T Aggie Pride. Uh, North Carolina is no man's land when it comes to weed. I mean, everybody got it. You know what I'm saying? You go to the weed man. I was one of the weed men, but it was no man's land when it came to getting into the industry. I started out, just writing. I got my degree in journalism, mass communication, so I started writing for different dispensaries in the on the West Coast. 365 Recreational, shout out to them. And Seattle, Washington was my first dispensary I wrote for. And then, I got a couple of freelance opportunities with Leafly and whatnot, but it was never consistent. I felt like everybody around me had a thing, and my thing was weed, and I felt childish behind it because when you somewhere where you in Cali, so weed culture is totally different. You know what I'm saying? So it's a whole profession, been thriving profession out there. But when you in the South, and it's just weed men around you. You get what I'm saying? But you starting to see your homeboys got detailing businesses. Niggas work on cars. Niggas do dog shit. Niggas do music. You know what I'm saying? Got their own thing. And then you also got your homies who are really into their corporate shit and accounting and all that. Journalism is a thriving business if you want to be a news person, but I didn't want to be in news, you know? So I felt a little childish that I was just interested in weed. You get what I'm saying? So I was hustling or whatever. And one day I decided to create Burner's Block, which is a movement that I don't even know what it is, man. I say it's a movement because I don't really know what it is. It started out as me selling weed on Instagram and just showing, the different packs that me and my homies had around the city, getting people on. And then from there, my first page got taken down because I was selling weed on Instagram.
Mm.
And then from there, I'm like, I want to turn it up a little bit. So I start making it into like rolling papers. So I came out with Burner's Block rolling papers. And then it just kept snowballing to I started educating people about, medicinal weed and stuff like that and weed laws and I started growing myself at the crib. And then one day I was just like, you know what? I'm sick of this shit. I packed up my 2011 Toyota, me, Shorty, and my turtle, and we drove 33 hours to Vegas. I packed up everything. I was like, I'm gonna go get in this industry one way or another. Got me a dispensary job in Vegas. Shout out to the Grove, Las Vegas on University Ave. Stayed in Vegas for about 3 months. Mom's ended up getting diagnosed with heart disease. I'm across the country. Come back to North Carolina. And also, I couldn't adjust in Vegas as well. Like the West Coast was so different than the East Coast and trying to adjust and understand the culture there. And I'm just a little guy from, the East Coast who's trying to come into an already thriving industry, trying to make a name. Went back to Greensboro, which is where I was living at the time. Um, Started hustling again, was unfulfilled. I had a female friend who said, yo, the University of Maryland just dropped a cannabis program. Why don't you just apply to it? I was like, you know what? At this time, I started Burner's Block had got a little buzz in the city. People was knowing it from, me growing and the education stuff I did. And from there, I started, wanting to sponsor inmates. So I started sponsoring inmates with nonviolent cannabis crimes, keeping their books up, making sure they had commissary going on, making sure they had silver lawyers when they got out, trying to help them with expungement. I started doing shit like that. Applied to the University of Maryland, got in. All of this shit happened in the same year. I transitioned. I got in the University of Maryland, started grad school, and then ended up moving to Maryland because I got a job in medical cannabis. And from there, shit just started moving, man. I started getting speaking opportunities, started being in like political rooms that I never thought I would be in. Um, I've worked in, obviously the dispensary. When I got to Maryland, I was working in cultivation. Got out of that, started working in medical cannabis patient care, started helping people get certified. Now I'm in the tech aspect of cannabis, so I'm kind of like a product engineer for one of the biggest, if not the biggest, cannabis software companies in the industry, Dutchy. Uh, Also still doing my Burners Block thing, speaking on helping people expunge records. I just spoke at Columbia Care, speaking on exclusiveness of bringing trans people into the cannabis industry, specifically Black trans people. I speak on if you're not going to own a cannabis license, then let's get Black executives in the corporate cannabis realm because it's only 1% ownership in the cannabis industry. Now imagine how many Black executives there are in corporate cannabis spaces that white people own these businesses. They're not putting us in positions. Still slave labor, niggas in the processing facilities, but niggas can't get the marketing position. You get what I'm saying? So I speak on stuff like that. I speak on African American mothers getting their children stripped away from them for testing positive for weed versus a white mother who tested positive for heroin and she gets an extra chance. So yeah, like, so pretty much into my like advocacy bag right now with weed and just trying to make some changes, man.
So is this advocacy only for Maryland or is this nationwide?
Right now, I'm only in Maryland. Um, I would love to be nationwide. That's the goal. Um, I have a speaking function I'm doing next week in Baltimore. Education and expungement. that I'm teaching, helping people expunge their records there. It's like expungement clinic. But I've had people, talk to me from Oregon who's like, hey, have you thought about coming out here to speak? Yeah, but I also acknowledge that I'm doing this blindly. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have no mentor. You know what I'm saying? And one thing about niggas, when niggas get in position, and it's niggas in the cannabis industry that in position that I look up to as role models. And there's a couple of them that I asked to be my mentor, and they agreed. They just have a lot going on right now. Shout out to them. But there's other people that I've reached out to, and it's kind of like this when we get our piece of the pie. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
nigga, I had to find my way, find your own. Like, you know what I'm saying? Where you got, and I'm just throwing out random names, like a white name. You got Mr. Todd Patterson here, who's on this law firm, who put his nephew on, who
Mm-hmm.
nephew put his homeboy on, who homeboy put his cousin on, and now we just got a dynasty of everybody putting us on. Why can't we be like that? I don't charge for consultations when students ask me for stuff. I don't charge for, hey, how can you get me in the industry? Can I put you as a reference? Yeah, just tell me a little bit about you. Put me as a reference. So when they call me, I know what to say, nigga. So I can get you in there. I don't charge for any of that. I've been asked to be a lecturer for the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, for their cannabis program. I got asked to be a lecturer for there. Students ask me all the time, how can I get in the industry? How can I help with this? How can I help with that? I don't charge for any of that advice.
Mm.
Cause I mean, knowledge is free, man. Like I want everybody to get in. I want to be that avenue for people to be more educated who's still doing it. It's a lot of money. It's $1 billion business. We still slinging on the corner. Yeah, that's cool because y'all don't want to pay taxes. But look at the risk here. I want to be that avenue to get niggas in. You know what I'm saying? And educate people. But also, I want to be also that protector where I educate our people on, okay, now that you got this license, just because Mr. Todd Patterson got $3 million and he want to buy your license, nigga, don't sell that to him. You get what I'm saying? I know, it's easier said than done. We grew up in the hood. We ain't never
Yeah.
seen 3 million. Or, just it's a whole thing. The cannabis, that's a whole different
Yeah.
whole different beast. I could really go in and in, but
So Burner's Block, is that a nonprofit organization or is it for profit?
Burner's Block is a nonprofit.
So in the cannabis space though, I'm gonna ask this in sections. How many black men do you see?
We could talk about what level. That's when I talk about levels. We talking about on the cultivation side or like fulfillment. It's quite a few brothers in there.
Okay.
We talking about in the cannabis space as the janitor. Oh, it's some janitors in there.
Okay.
Uh, we talking about executives? Not many.
Okay.
I was blessed to have my job. My executive is black. My executive director is a black man. Phenomenal black man. His name's Shawn too, ironically.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
me and him, we was just talking, and he was saying the same thing, how it's a lot of lack of diversity on the executive level, lack of opportunity, and how he's creating an avenue and he's starting to mentor me and stuff like that. But it's not a lot of us, even fewer black women.
Mm. So how many trans men are in the cannabis space?
You know what? Somebody messaged me on LinkedIn not too long ago and was like, "You're the first trans man I've seen doing things in the industry, and the first trans man I've seen. Before that, I don't know any. I know trans men who sell weed on the block, and I know trans men who shout out to Undefeated Tank, young brother Zaire. He's trying to move from that to be more legitimate. But in the actual industry, uh, as far as I know, I'm the only one.
Okay. So in season 1, episode 30, we had I had a guest, Bobby Walker, and talked about legal cannabis. And he's in the industry too. So I don't know if you want to, maybe reach out to Bobby Walker or if you know Bobby Walker. But so then I guess my next question is how many black trans men? And he's a black trans man. So how many black trans men do you know in the cannabis industry?
That's the first time I've ever heard. I'm pretty sure he hardly ever heard of me either, because we
Yeah.
so very few and far between, you know.
Yeah,
So
I can try to connect y'all if you want to
for
do that.
sure.
So I'm gonna tell you one thing when I go and when you're talking about black men being incarcerated behind cannabis, when I used to go, because here it's a culture, it's totally different, right? Cannabis clubs is everywhere almost. From my house, it's probably about four in my area, just within a mile or two. And so when I know it's this one that I go to, and I get overwhelmed when I go in there because it's just so many products. It's
Mm-hmm.
like walking into a corner liquor store, and you know how you go into them corner liquor stores, they sell everything, and then everything is packed to the store. So every time when I first started to go in there, and I would look around, I would feel guilty, and I would feel angry because I'm like, it's so many brothers and so many people of color in prison over marijuana charges. And look at all this. It's just a plethora of choices that they selling and they charging hella tax on. And hella, excuse me, that's more of a Bay Area term, but hella meaning a lot.
No, yeah, we use it out here too.
Okay, okay. So it's like and well, that's also for people that's listening, like, what's hella? But yeah, and charge a lot of tax on it too. And I used to be like, that's crazy how the government is monetizing off of this stuff. But then they it's almost like they double dipping because you got people in the incarcerated that they getting money for, and then you get money from taxes from this stuff. But what advice would you give to folks that are listening that's like, yo, I want to get into that space?
First, I want to get off of what you said. Is it crazy though? When you think about the government, is it really crazy? Look at
No,
the
not really. Not
look at
really.
the crack epidemic. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. They was the dealers. So I mean, is it? It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
It's fucked up, but it's not expected. They the biggest gangsters. You know, and
Yeah.
that's for me personally. That's where I'm trying to. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get in.
Yeah.
I've been getting into lobbying. I've been getting into these politicians. Mike got a little internship coming soon in a big government office. Been trying to, get there so I could be, the bridge between the. I tried on not on no dirt shit, the voice of the streets, but somebody got to be the voice.
Yeah.
Somebody got to talk to these people. It's a disconnect here. You get what I'm saying? Like, but for my advice, I give everybody the same advice. Get your foot in the door. And I know that's so old school. You get what I'm saying? But once you get your foot in the door, also, I'm not being cliche when I say that, but already have a plan of where you're going. Because they'll keep you there, you know what I'm saying, if you allow them to. Do your work, you know what I'm saying? So they can't have nothing to talk about. I'm gonna do good work anyway, because that's just my character. So show them your character, but at the same time, let them know, hey, look, I'm an asset. No, you know what I'm saying? You can't hold me in this spot. I got this, that, and the third. I don't have nothing from my job. If I have something to do with respect, I'm gonna get my job, I'm gonna get my work done during the week. But I need this day off to speak. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm speaking at the Maryland Legislative Assembly. I'm not about to be here, you know what I'm saying, working on tech stuff right now. I got stuff to do
Yeah.
outside of here. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you for cutting my check. God knows, still need it. I need all my coins. But, if you can understand, they like, once they realize, like, all right, well, we got this person. You know what I'm saying? They got a lot going on. You'll start going places. I ain't saying shuck and jive. God knows I'm not. I ain't no shucking and jiving person. Always stand on your beliefs and don't have them limit you as the diversity and inclusion person either. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I have a big problem with corporate cannabis. Because it's blacks in corporate, but we DEI coordinators. Why? Why can't the accountant be black?
Mm.
Why can't the marketing person be black? Why can't your brand representative be a black man with dreads or a black woman with the Cisco haircut with the bleach? Well, you know what I'm saying? We talking about
Mm.
diversity here, but we're not
Mm.
really seeing no diversity. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I say. And I mean, be kind to everybody. Everybody, cannabis is still in the first inning, man. We're still in the first inning. It just reached 10 years. It's 10-year birthday of being legal in 2022. Like, we still in the first inning. So you never know. You better not burn no bridges, white, black, or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I tell everybody, play the game.
You just dropped a good point though when you talking about diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion. But you're talking about inclusion, but yeah, you can have black folks in these spaces, but is it really diversity if I'm looking the way you say think I'm supposed to look? You just like you said, a black woman with a Cisco haircut, not a black woman with a stereotypical haircut of a hairstyle of what you think a black woman should look like. That's not really inclusion because it's
That's
not
not
including. It's not including the real. It's not reflecting the real.
the intended goal was to be my own cannabis brand, my own cannabis business. Don't know if I ever get there. I'm hoping with these opportunities, the Lord will bless me with it. The ancestors, whoever,
Yeah.
myself, whoever, I get there. You know what I'm saying? But I just want to be a different type of brand. You know what I'm saying? Just a different type of brand. I want to be a black brand. I know that sounds so terrible, but that's just my truth. Everybody I want in my spaces to be black. What's wrong with that? I'm
It's
not
nothing
saying I'm
wrong with
gonna
that.
lack diversity, but in C-suite, I want all my C-suite to be black.
Mm.
But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that our community are real well versed on business and on good business. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I feel like a lot of black cannabis owners, go to the other side for assistance.
Mm.
Because you want to put in your community, but this person doesn't have any knowledge of good business. You know what I'm saying? Now we all in a fucked up position.
I think that it comes back to mentorship too, right? Because you said earlier that you wanted a mentor. So it comes back to I want to bring everybody up, but sometimes you got to bring everybody up and mentor them in the process.
Yep.
Because, I feel like if given the opportunity, people can excel. It's given the right opportunity and the right mentor in the right space. And don't get me wrong, not every and this is white, black, whatever, right? Not everybody is good. And you got to be able to differentiate the two between this is going to be somebody that's good for my business and can contribute to my business in a healthy way, or this person just ain't going to be good regardless if I mentor them or not. And it's being able to differentiate that. But I got faith in you, and I feel like if you put that out there in the universe, this gonna happen. As long as you giving your 100% and you all 10 toes down and you putting in the work and doing the work. It ain't like you got I'm just gonna sit on my couch and smoke my weed and it's gonna happen, but you're not putting in the work. But as long as you're putting in the work, I feel like it's gonna come to you.
For sure. That and being the governor. And my two goals. If I could become the governor of Maryland one of these days, that's the
All right.
goal.
All right. I'm gonna look for you.
For sure.
You got accountability partner then, because I want to see you. Excuse me. I want to see you excel in that. Whatever you put out there in the universe, you deserve to get. And so, as long as you're gonna do good with the position that you are granted, I would love to see that and see you excel in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
for sure. So this is the part of the show where I like to ask my guest a random question. I got a long list of questions. Well, not long. I only got 40 questions. My list is always growing. Just pick a number between 1 and 40, and I'll read you that question. Note that the question may or may not have anything to do with what we talked about today. So,
All right. I'm gonna use my age. 29.
okay. So 29 says, what is one thing you consider a bad habit that you still currently do or once did and stopped or you quit doing? So what's a bad habit that you currently doing or was a bad habit before but you stopped doing?
Mm, damn, that's a good question.
Hmm.
Cause
I
you don't really think about like your bad habits for real.
I could go
Damn.
first if you want me to say what my bad
Yeah,
habit
go
was.
ahead.
So my bad habit was I suck my thumb. I
Really?
thought, yeah, I used to, not anymore. I used to suck my thumb until I was in my late 30s, and I was like, well, in my early 30s. And I was like, I'm never gonna kick this habit. I'm never gonna stop sucking my thumb. I would suck my thumb just because I would suck my thumb when I was stressed. But what made me stop was I got my teeth fixed. And I paid
Mm.
thousands of dollars for my teeth to get straightened. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do that again. So, and even then, if I put my thumb in my mouth now, it don't feel the same because my teeth aren't shaped the same. So my teeth were shaped around my thumb. And so now I wouldn't feel comfortable anyway. So I
Wow.
forcibly cut that habit of sucking my thumb. Okay, so what's yours?
Oh man. I used to dig under my thumbnail, like for whatever reason. I had to recently stop though, because that joint was causing too much pain. But I don't know why. Like it wasn't like a self-harm or none of that. It was just when I got nervous.
Mm,
When I got nervous. Now I adopt when I get nervous, I just pace around before I
mm,
damn try to pick my thumb or something like that.
mm. Well, it's almost like the same as people biting their nails, right?
Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Okay,
Like when
okay.
I was little, I used to like pick under my the palm of my hand just
Mm,
obsessively. But like I don't know, it was just out of nervousness or something like anxiousness.
mm,
It was one day I just stopped.
mm. So you don't pick under your nail anymore either?
Nope,
Okay,
just stopped.
okay. So we have reached the end of this episode. I want to say thank you for listening to Dem Boys Podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Shawn Aaron, he, him, his. Be sure to visit our website at dembois.org. That is DEMBOIS.org. If you would like to connect with us, be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. If you think you would be a great guest on the show, or if you know somebody you think would be a great guest on the show, there's multiple ways to request to be a guest on the show. First is you can go visit our Instagram page, click the link in our bio, and from there you'll be able to request to be a guest on the show. Or you can visit our website, click the programs tab up top, scroll down to podcast, click the podcast button, and from there on the podcast page, you'll be able to request to be a guest on the show. Yo, we need questions, y'all. If you have those burning questions, a question that you want to ask me or a future guest on the show, there's multiple ways that you can send in questions, right? So first, you can go to Instagram, DM us that question, or you can email us at hello@dembois.org. That's HELLO, like hi, at dembois.org. Be sure to like the show. Be sure to share this show out with your friends and other folks in your networks. So until next time, take care.